So the question we're asking today is, what qualifications do you need to become a musician? And today we're going to talk about 7 things you absolutely need and 1 thing that you do not. And we'll get to that in just a moment. Hey, it's Paul Toby here from jazzmental.com. Today we're talking about the qualifications that you need to become a musician, and we're going to talk about 7 things that are absolutely imperative. And I'm assuming we're talking about the type of musician that is getting paid. And so let's go through those 7 things, and then we'll talk about 1 thing that you absolutely do not need that many people think you do. So number 1, you need to be able to sight read. So whether you're a classical musician or a jazz musician or any type of style of music, typically if you end up on a gig or the bandstand or in a session, learning to sight read is something very important. Somebody puts a piece of sheet music in front of you, you should be able to read it. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. For example, on the bandstand, you might see something like this called Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. And if you were a single note player, in other words, a saxophone player or trumpet player where you're not playing multiple notes at one time, you'd obviously need to be able to sight read that melody without any mistakes. For example, so yeah, pretty simple it sounds like. Obviously, there are more complex tunes than this, but the ability to sight read as a musician is imperative to your professional outcome if you're looking to make money as a musician. So the next thing we have on the list is number 2, the ability to read chord symbols. So on the same song that we're working on right now, Softly as the Morning Sunrise, you'll see a bunch of chord symbols, and those chord symbols represent what suggested chords you should be playing as a musician. And even though there are suggested chords, it's not necessarily the way you end up playing it. So to me, if it says C minor 7, that could mean many things. C minor 9th, C minor 11th, you're adding extensions. There could even be a 2-5-1 in there, and so on and so forth. So the ability to read chord symbols is kind of imperative. So let's take a look at this song as if we were sight reading it, but also playing chord symbols. So that's an example of sight reading with chord symbols. You're going to have to know, especially as a jazz musician, what those actually mean. So if you're on the jazz bandstand or you're in a session at a recording studio, chord symbols come up a lot, and you kind of need to be able to decipher those and figure them out. Good news is, over at jazzmental.com, we have lessons on how to absolutely do that, and that's a good place to start. Number 3 is you're going to need some rhythm. Now, here's the big problem with rhythm. Most people think of rhythm in terms of 1 and 3 if we were in 4 beats to the bar. So they're like 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of normal for most people, 1, 2, 3, 4. But all music as a musician is always on the backbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's not normal for you, which it isn't for most people, music will tend to always not feel like it's in the pocket. So learning that innate sense of 2 and 4, and of course there are other key signatures, time signatures, but at the end of the day, the and of the beat is the most important part. So that has to be learned and figured out over time. It kind of gets ingrained in you and becomes part of you. Number 4, definitely an above average playing ability. What does that mean? That means that music should not be challenging for you. So if you want to become a musician, you should be able to play many different styles, many different speeds, and just be really good at what you do. above average playing ability. That would be good. Number 5, a good amount of self-discipline. So that means the ability to focus on what you really want as a musician versus what you want right now. Yes, I want to become a professional musician, somebody who is respected in the industry and makes some good money doing it, but I also want to watch television. The two don't necessarily mix, because unlike any other profession, you've got to put in the time, repeating things over and over again. And that's what musicians with self-discipline do. Professionals, there's a difference between amateur and professional. Amateurs practice things until they get them right. Professionals practice them until they can't get them wrong. So there's a big difference between those two, and there's a lot of repetition there. So a good amount of self-discipline can really help you. All right, so what is the next one on our list? Number 6 is persistence. Being a professional musician requires an innate level of persistence, just continuously working at it, going for it, networking, figuring out ways to get contracts, get a recording contract, do a tour, write music. There's just so many elements involved in becoming a professional that you're going to need a good amount of persistence. Just that sort of keep going, keep going, keep going. Persistence is one of those things that I would recommend that everyone sort of figure out, because most people don't have that. Most people are a little more laid back than that, and that sense of going for it is not necessarily inherent in a lot of people, but is absolutely imperative if you are to become a professional musician. All right, let's go to number 7. A little business sense goes a long way in the music business. So they don't call it a music business for nothing. And this is something that I wish that I had learned a lot earlier than I did, because I think I would have had a lot easier go of it. So I'm not really going to talk about all the challenges that I had, but I can tell you that a business sense, somebody who understands money management, who understands marketing, who understands sales and fulfillment and HR and finance, because HR as a band leader, you kind of need to know how to deal with people. So there is this whole level of business sense that you need, especially if you're going to be a leader in the music business. A leader on the bandstand, a leader in a business, somebody who understands all of the aspects of business. And that's really, in addition to learning your craft, writing great music, practicing, business is a whole other layer of intelligence that you need to learn over time. For that, I would suggest you get some advice, because it's not an easy go. The music business is not the easiest business. I'm not going to say it's tough. Some people believe that it is, but I just think it obviously takes a lot of persistence, but there's also knowledge that other people have that they can share with you that can help you advance your career quite a bit. For example, jazzmental.com is a great resource for you for some from myself, who's been a professional musician. I can help guide you into some of the things like how to get grants or tour money, or how to get a recording contract, and all of this kind of stuff. So it's not obvious. I would suggest you check out jazzmental.com to give you a little bit of hand up in your situation. Okay, so that's the 7 things you absolutely need. One more time: the ability to sight read, understanding chord symbols, not necessarily for classical musicians, but certainly if you're going to play pop and jazz and rock and country, you're going to need to read chord symbols. Number 3 was rhythm. Then 4, above average playing ability. 5, self-discipline. 6, persistence. 7, a little business sense. Obviously, a little business sense goes a long way. But then the final one, you don't absolutely need this. It's something that I did, and if I actually had to go back again and do it all over, I'm not sure I would make the same choice. And that is, you don't necessarily need a university degree. And the reason for that is no one ever asked me for it. In all of my 25 years as a professional musician, nobody ever said, you can't play here because you don't have a degree. And so It was a lot of time that I spent, and I maybe could have used some of those years to get a little bit more knowledge about the music business, which you don't really learn in university. And you also don't learn leadership skills and all of the things that I've learned since. So if I had to do it again, I would give up a couple of years and get some mentorship from professionals who could guide me a little bit more, because music teachers at university aren't necessarily the professionals that you need. So that's the qualifications that you need to become a musician. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'd like to hear your comments below as well. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be great. My name is Paul Toby. Thanks for your time.